You're walking barefoot through tall grass. No boots, no hospital, no antivenom. Then you feel it. Two sharp points in your ankle. A snake bite 10,000 years ago wasn't just painful. It was one of the most common causes of death in early human history. No warning system, no emergency room, just you, your tribe, and whatever your ancestors had figured out through trial, error, and a lot of dead bodies. So, how did anyone survive this? Let's find out, and let's start with just how dangerous this world actually was. Before we get to survival, you need to understand the scale of the problem. Ancient humans didn't just occasionally encounter venomous snakes, they lived embedded in snake territory every single day. No paved roads, no cleared land, just tall grass, rock piles, riverbanks, and forest floor, all prime snake habitat. Depending on where a tribe lived, they might share their land with vipers, cobra relatives, or dozens of other regional venomous species, each with a completely different type of venom and completely different symptoms. And here's what made it so much worse than today. There was no clear medical category for dangerous versus harmless. A bite today gets identified within minutes. Species, venom type, hospital protocol. Back then, a bite was just an event. Something happened, and now you wait to find out if you live. Estimates from anthropological studies of hunter-gatherer societies suggest snake bites were a leading cause of death in some regions. Not a rare freak accident, but a real, recurring threat every single member of a tribe understood and feared from childhood. To understand how ancient humans responded to a bite, you have to understand how they understood the bite in the first place, because it shaped everything that came next. Most ancient cultures didn't see venom as biology. They saw it as something closer to a curse, a poison spirit, or a punishment from an angry ancestor or god. In many oral traditions, snakes themselves were treated as supernatural beings, messengers of the underworld, guardians of sacred ground, or physical forms taken by vengeful spirits. This belief mattered enormously. If a bite was spiritual, the cure needed to be spiritual too. Many tribes paired physical treatment with ritual, chanting, burning specific herbs, or having a shaman perform a ceremony over the wound, believed to draw the poison spirit out alongside any physical remedy. To an outside observer today, this looks like superstition layered on top of medicine. To the people living it, the ritual and the treatment were the same act. The very first physical thing most ancient humans did was the same thing your instinct tells you to do right now: suck the poison out. Turns out that instinct is ancient, and it's also almost completely useless. Venom moves into the bloodstream and lymphatic system within seconds. By the time someone's mouth is anywhere near the wound, the venom's already traveling. Worse, if the person doing the sucking had a cut or sore in their mouth, they could absorb venom themselves. But they didn't know that, so this technique was passed down for thousands of years, tribe to tribe, generation to generation, not because it worked, but because doing nothing felt unbearable. When someone you love is dying in front of you, you act, even if the action is wrong. The next method was more aggressive, cutting open the bite wound and letting it bleed. The logic made sense on the surface. If venom is inside you, get it out. Some ancient healers would slice an X directly over the fang marks with a sharpened stone or blade, then squeeze or suck to drain blood and hopefully venom with it. In reality, this often did more harm than good. Cutting increases the risk of infection catastrophically in a world with zero sterilization, and by the time the cut was made, most of the venom had already spread beyond the local tissue. So the person surviving this treatment often survived despite it, not because of it. Many snake bites, even untreated, aren't lethal. That fact alone is what let dangerous folk remedies survive for millennia. Enough people lived that the method got credit it didn't deserve. Another widespread technique: tying something tight above the bite to stop the venom from spreading up the limb. On the surface, this feels logical. Cut off the pathway, trap the poison in one place. And in a narrow sense, it can slow the spread. But ancient tourniquets were often tied far too tight, for far too long, cutting off blood flow entirely. The result? Some people who might have survived the venom instead lost the limb to tissue death, or introduced a second life-threatening crisis on top of the first. This is one of the clearest examples of an ancient cure that created a second disaster while trying to solve the first. And because nobody was tracking outcomes scientifically, nobody realized the treatment itself was sometimes the thing that killed the patient. But here's the twist. Some ancient techniques weren't useless. A few actually worked, even if the people using them didn't fully understand why. Immobilization. Many ancient cultures independently discovered that keeping the bitten limb still, tying it against a stick, wrapping it snugly, forcing the person to lie down and stop moving, slowed the spread of venom. This is essentially correct, and it's still standard advice today. Movement pumps venom through the lymphatic system faster. A still body buys time. Plant-based treatments. Across different continents, healers developed remedies using specific local plants. Crushed leaves, roots, and bark, applied directly to the wound or eaten. Some of these plants had genuine anti-inflammatory or antibacterial properties, even if the healers had no concept of bacteria or inflammation as we understand it. They knew what worked through pure observation. Try it on enough bites over enough generations, and patterns emerge even without understanding the mechanism. Tools instead of mouths. Some tribes developed hollowed bones or reeds to draw fluid out of a wound without direct mouth contact, reducing risk to the person helping. A crude but genuinely clever adaptation, essentially an early primitive suction device. Pattern recognition. Perhaps the most underrated ancient survival tool. Experienced tribe members learned to recognize which snakes in their territory were dangerous and which weren't, and could roughly judge bite severity by symptoms: swelling speed, bleeding, breathing changes. That knowledge, built purely through generational trial and error, meant some healers could tell a family, "she'll live," or say goodbye with real accuracy, centuries before anyone understood toxinology as a science. To understand what this actually looked like, picture a single incident. A hunter is bitten mid-morning, far from camp. His companions immediately do two things. They keep him as still as possible, and they send the fastest runner ahead to alert the tribe's healer. By the time he's carried back, hours later, in serious pain, limb swelling, the healer has already prepared plant remedies based on which snake species she's identified from the bite pattern and the hunter's symptoms. She doesn't cut. She's learned through years of watching outcomes that cutting rarely helps. Instead, she applies a poultice, keeps him immobile, and waits. The tribe doesn't panic. They've seen this before. Some people live, some don't. Nobody controls that outcome, but everyone knows the ritual. Stay calm, stay still, trust the healer, and wait for the venom to run its course one way or another. This is what ancient medicine actually was. Not miracle cures, but calm, practiced management of an outcome largely outside anyone's control. So, who survived and who didn't? Survival came down to three brutal variables: which snake, how much venom, and how fast the tribe reacted. A dry bite, where a snake bites but injects little or no venom, which happens more often than people assume, meant survival regardless of what anyone did. A full envenomation from a highly toxic species with no modern treatment available was often fatal no matter how skilled the healer was. This is the uncomfortable truth ancient medicine operated inside. Sometimes the cure was luck wearing the costume of skill. A healer who happened to treat 5 dry bites in a row looked like a miracle worker. A healer who treated 5 severe bites in a row looked like they'd lost their touch, even if they did everything identically both times. Tribes that survived long-term in snake-heavy regions weren't the ones with the best cures. They were the ones with the best avoidance. Traditions, warnings, and taboos passed down about which grasses to avoid, which times of day were dangerous, which rock piles to stay away from. Prevention, not treatment, was the real survival strategy, and it's the part of ancient snakebite culture that gets the least attention today. Some of what ancient humans discovered through pure trial and error laid the groundwork for real medicine thousands of years later. The idea of immobilizing a bitten limb is still standard first aid advice today. The instinct to identify dangerous species through observed pattern recognition eventually became the foundation of taxonomy and toxinology. Even some of the plant compounds ancient healers used blindly are still being studied today for legitimate pharmacological properties, with modern researchers investigating traditional remedies from cultures around the world for genuine medical applications. But most of what they tried, the cutting, the mouth sucking, the tourniquets pulled too tight, actively hurt people, generation after generation, and nobody knew it. It took thousands of years and the invention of actual antivenom in the late 1800s before snakebite survival stopped being a coin flip dressed up as skill. What's remarkable isn't that ancient humans got so much wrong. It's that, working purely from observation with zero understanding of biology, chemistry, or immunology, they got anything right at all. Immobilization alone, one correct idea, discovered independently across unconnected cultures on different continents, probably saved thousands of lives across human history, purely through repeated trial and error. So the honest answer to how did ancient humans survive a snake bite is this: mostly by luck. Sometimes by accidental correct instinct, and often they simply didn't survive at all. What separates us now isn't that we're smarter than they were. It's that we've had thousands of years to fail forward, to turn folk remedies into real science, one dead body and one lucky survivor at a time. Every antivenom vial in a modern hospital exists because thousands of ancient humans didn't make it, and a handful of ancient healers noticed one thing that actually worked. Next time you flinch at a garden hose that looks like a snake, remember that fear is ancient. It's older than language. It's older than fire. And for most of human history, it was completely justified.